My name is Peter Sprygada. I am the Vice President of Product Management here at Itential. And I am here to talk to you today about specifically the Itential Automation Gateway. And we're going to dive into how Gateway has been conceived and developed to really allow customers to start to bring their existing automation tooling into an orchestrated framework. We're going to start with, in essence, what would be considered probably the least programmable aspect of the network. Now, we recognize that a majority of organizations have already made substantial investments in the tooling that they use, and we need to be able to onboard that. We can't expect a customer to simply throw away all of the tooling that they've made an investment in, whether they've made that investment in writing custom scripts and applications, whether they've made an investment in Ansible or Terraform or Nornir or Napalm, whatever they've done, it is important and imperative that we provide an opportunity for them to continue to do that within the domains that by which the teams are managing those tools. In other words, we don't want to have to dictate to any given team what tooling they should have to use in order to operate their network. I think that would actually be quite counterproductive. So let's think about this today. Let's think about how organizations are, really dealing with automation. I think back to the first time I wrote automation. As many of you may or may not know, I've had a long career in network engineering and operations, mostly on the vendor side, but I've also worked on the provider side as well, mostly in the SP world. I've actually run engineering and operations teams, so I've had the opportunity to live this myself. I can actually remember writing my first script and sitting down and saying, there's got to be a better way to be able to get data out of network devices versus me just sitting down and logging in. My journey went something like this, right? I sat down, I wrote my script, I banged away at the keyboard. I didn't know what I was doing. But I eventually hacked away and I got to the point where I could log into a device and I could run 2-3 show commands. I could extract that information, I could save it to a file. It was fantastic. I was elated that I could do this. Well, as I started doing that, and eventually I'm playing with this and I'm excited. And I run, 2 cubes over and I talk to my buddy, Rich. And I'm like, Rich, look at what I've done. And I show it to him. He's like, wow, that's really great. That is fantastic. He's like, I would really like to be able to do that. Can I have your script? Of course you can. So I hand my script to him. And he starts to play with it and he gets really involved in it. And so he makes a few changes and now we've got 2 versions of the script sitting around in the world. And as Rich keeps going, and then he thinks, I'm really excited about this. I want to dig into this. And, perhaps he goes out online and he just happens to catch a blog written by Aaron and it's talking about the merits of automation and it references something called Nornir. And he dives into Nornir and he starts playing with that and realizes, wow, I can do even more and builds on that. And Rich goes off to lunch and he's having lunch with his pal Karan and tells Karan everything he's doing. And Karan says, you know what, we've been doing this in the cloud forever, but I've got this networking project and I really need I need some help with that. And, can I get your scripts? Absolutely. Shares the scripts. And on this process goes. We've all lived through or seen something like this. Well, the challenge with this is that while this is fantastic work and it's fantastic to see engineers and operations teams finding new and exciting ways to increase their efficiency around operations, how do we scale that into the enterprise, right? How do I take that individual that has really adopted Ansible, for instance, and said, you know what, I can do amazing things. The problem is that I still don't know how to make this available to the rest of the organization. Right? It can't be I go around and teach everyone how to do it. That's not what my job is. That's not what I want my job to be. There's value here, but how do we get value back out of that for the organization? And that's really what our Gateway product is all about. It's all about being able to take all of this tremendous work and all of these technology domains and be able to uplift it in such a way that we can put an API over the top of it. We can execute it underneath the covers, and we can deliver the functionality into a fully orchestrated system. So these individual teams that have made commitments to these platforms, whether it's Ansible or Nornir or Terraform, that all of that functionality can be made available and it can become part of an end-to-end workflow. So that as these different as these different teams continue to do their work and they focus on their areas of expertise, network ops continuing to focus on evaluating, selecting, and operationalizing tools that make sense to them, cloud ops doing the exact same thing, it's actually the Itential Automation Gateway that's going to bring this functionality to the enterprise in a way that makes it scalable, makes it auditable, makes it secure, maybe most importantly, makes it consumable. Because network operations and network engineering teams don't have the want or the need to sit down and write code 8 hours a day and add all of the enterprise controls necessary to scale it to the organization. They need to stay focused on the task they're doing because that's what their job ultimately is for them. And that's what the Itential Automation Gateway is designed to do. So what I'd like to do is, as opposed to me just sitting here though and talking about Gateway, I think it's really important that we see some of these things in operation. So I'm going to take you through the Itential Automation Gateway and show you how we're doing these things. For those of you who have never seen this before, it'll be an opportunity to experience what Gateway is capable of doing. Now, everything I'm going to walk you through is all shipping GA code today. There is nothing here that is roadmap. There is nothing here that is coming soon. This is all stuff that not only is it shipping, but it's deployed in customer environments today. I can tell you that with Gateway, we have customers that are running Gateway in their infrastructure that are actually executing, in some cases, tens of thousands of workflows, in some cases a day. And Gateway is a very key part to how they deliver that functionality. So to get started with Gateway, we kind of take a look at what the Gateway interface, and this is what you get when you first log into Gateway. And what I want you to note here is that Gateway itself provides no inherent, if you will, automation functionality. It really is designed to be a wrapper around the tooling and the DevOps frameworks and the ways that individual teams are going about automating their infrastructure. So again, whether they're doing netconf or Nornir or Terraform or Ansible, Gateway is going to provide them a mechanism that allows them to continue to develop with all of their native tools in the same way that they automate today, but be able to put wrappers around it and then expose all of that functionality up into the orchestration layer. So let's kind of dive into this a little bit. I'm going to go into Ansible. For those of you who know me, know I may know a thing or two about Ansible. So I just figured this would be a natural place for me to get started. And it really all starts with devices, right? We got to know what we're automating. And this set of devices that you see in Gateway, this is all pulled in from Ansible inventory runs. So in fact, I can actually start to look at some of these things. And what you'll notice immediately, hopefully when you see the screen, for any of you who've done Ansible in the past, is this is as Ansible gets. It's just giving you a UI. I could do all of this from the CLI, but I'm really challenged with how I scale scripts and bash shell applications into the enterprise. Here, I'm going to do it directly through the Gateway UI. Now, one of the very unique things that we're doing from Gateway is we're actually providing access to all of the Ansible modules, and those can actually be directly executed right from Gateway. So how many times have we ever thought about, gosh, I really just need to do one very specific thing, and I really don't want to sit down and write a whole playbook for it if I'm an Ansible, or I don't want to write a whole script for it. I just need to do something quick. I need to run, show version on n number of devices. I can actually go into the Gateway UI, and for instance, if I want to run, say, iOS command, I can actually call up iOS command, and I get a set of fields that I can fill out and have it go out and execute. In this case, these are the standard inputs to iOS command, for those of you who are familiar with it. So I can jump over to execute, and of course, I need to tell it what host or hosts I'm running on. And since the network team always loves it when I hit their devices, I'm going to go ahead and continue doing that here today. And we're just going to run a simple command. I'm not here to try and show off my CLI foo. In fact, I would imagine at this point in my career, you all probably know CLI commands better than I do. But very simply put, I selected a device, or I could have selected a group of devices. I select the command that I want to run, and Gateway will go off, wrap around Ansible, and perform the command. And of course, I get back the output from the command I ran. I can now start to utilize this information in workflows, which we're going to get into in a little bit in this demo. But it's really important to show that we are simply wrapping around the tools natively as the tool is presenting itself. When you look at the output from this tool, from Ansible specifically, you should note that this is the actual Ansible output. This is actually unchanged by Gateway. So it's as Ansible gets. So I can continue to run and build playbooks. I can continue to test those playbooks in my local environment. I continue to work with those playbooks. And when I have those playbooks that are ready to go, and I'm ready to provide them for the rest of the organization, I can then commit them to version control, and I can pull them down into Gateway, and I can start to execute them on them.
Do you have fine-grained RBAC authorization for these playbooks that get run by users that log in?
So we have RBAC built into Gateway today. It would depend on how you wanted to find fine grain. That's a bit of a kind of open-ended question. But yes, there is RBAC absolutely built into Gateway, and we can control who can do what within Gateway. Yeah, so I don't know if you want to clarify that a little bit more. I can probably address it in a little bit more specifics.
Sure. The NOC can run some playbooks, but not all of them, and the engineering team can run any playbook they want.
So yeah, no. Today it's essentially you get all or nothing access into Gateway. You can either do what Gateway what Gateway presents to you, or you cannot. Now, that being said, Gateway is an execution environment more so than, like I said, it provides actual functionality. And the way that the product is built, and more importantly, the way it's licensed, a customer can deploy as many instances of Gateway as they want. And so therefore you can actually segment that way by instances of Gateway deployed, as opposed to having to build one instance of Gateway and build all of your permissions and privileges into it. So moving on, let's look at playbooks. So modules are great. Let's look at an actual playbook though. In this case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pop up a playbook, in this case, iOS run command. Again, nothing fancy. I can see what the playbook is. Now, I want you to note that here in the playbook, we've got a variable called command that we're expecting. And this is where Automation Gateway really begins to shine, because now I can go through a process that I call decoration. And I can decorate this playbook, just like I can decorate a module, and I can control what those inputs are. So going into my parameters, I've actually created a parameter called Gateway, command, and it is a required command. In other words, I can't run this playbook unless I've provided a value for command. So through the UI, again, we'll go play with our core router here. And we'll jump down into our command, and my command will be show version. And I can go off and I can run that show version command. And just like I could do with the module, I can do the same thing with the playbook. And it will go off and it'll execute against the device. But the subtle difference here is now we are putting a control in place that says, I am controlling what your input is so that I can define that input. As we know, when you start using tools and scripts, the challenge is, how do I know what the inputs are? How am I making sure I'm putting them in the correct way? And so through our process of decoration, just to explode this out, just to show it actually did run and actually did hit the device. But through our decoration process, we can actually add validation at this point. So I could have built this in such a way that said, it's not just about running the command. As a matter of fact, if I were to go in and look at, in fact, you know what? While we're here, why not? Let's go look at something different. I've been playing with Ansible enough. Let's go look at a script, because I think that this will exemplify, or this will really amplify what decoration is all about. So here I've got a bunch of scripts. Again, same concept. I can onboard them and I can wrap decoration around them. And in fact, I'm going to go into this one. Now, this is a script that was written. It leverages NetMiko. This isn't native NetMiko to Gateway. This is a script that's going to invoke NetMiko on its own. Here I've got a set of input parameters that script is going to map. It's going to map into that script. And if I look at that script, this is what the script looks like. Now, I also want you to take note of looking at the script for just a moment. We actually pulled this script right out of Cisco NetDev. I think Hank Preston actually wrote this script. We didn't write it. But it really shows the power of what Gateway is able to do. We pulled the script in. We recognized that there was a set of inputs for this script. And then what we did is we built decoration around it, just like you saw with the playbook example. And now I can control that. So this script is asking for interface name, description, IP, netmask. I could build validation around, say, IP and say, okay, it has to be a valid IP, and therefore I put some regex in there and so forth. I didn't do this for this one, but I could. But now I can actually go off and I can actually execute this just like I executed anything else. So let's just say I want to go ahead and build a new loopback. This one always makes operations happy. And I want to add a description to it and an IP address. And of course, we need our netmask, and we'll fire that off. And just like you saw with the module, just like you saw with the playbook, now you see it with a script that was custom written. It can go off and it can actually perform this. So as a network engineer, network operations professional, I continue to do the job I've always done. I build my scripts, I build my playbooks, and Gateway gives me the ability then to decorate and wrap around them and do things, just as you say here. So therefore, I get that predictable outcome. And I don't have to build all of the transformation into my playbook. I don't have to build all of the validation into my playbook. So how does this materialize, though, into an overall workflow around network automation? It does it like this. I'm going to briefly show you Automation Platform. We're going to get into it in subsequent sections, but I want to go into Automation Studio and really show you how it all comes together. So from Automation Studio, I can actually build workflows. In fact, what I'm going to go ahead and do here is I'm going to go ahead and create a new workflow, and I'm going to give it a name again. We'll call it NFD demo. And I can create this workflow. And what you'll notice here is that I want to add a new node to my workflow. And the thing I want to add here is iOS command. And when I go to add this to my workflow, I have a set of input variables, and those same input variables are matching exactly what Gateway was decorating. So here I can see commands, wait for. You know what? That's not a good example. I've actually pre-built another one. Let's go look at that one, because I think it tells the story even better. If I were to go into a completely different workflow, no, I don't want to save that current one. This is that NetMiko script I showed you that had a custom set of decoration around it. But now when I go into the node to run that shell script and I look at my variables, there they are again. Here's my interface name, here's my description, here's my IP, here's my netmask. Now this workflow is built in such a way I've pre-filled out all of the information. So if I just go and run this very simple workflow and kick that workflow off, it's going to go ahead and it's going to run, and Platform will then reach out to Gateway. It will reach out to it with the right set of incoming information to pass into the script, as we can say here. Here's my loopback, my description, my IP. And as this goes off and it tells Gateway to go ahead and run the script at this point in the workflow, it will finish running, and what we will get back from that is the final script once it's completed. And here it is completed. If I go back in here one more time, I can go into my output, and this is what I got back from this script. So the big takeaway from this is, yes, I can build scripts. Yes, I can build tools. Yes, I can continue to build all these aspects for doing automation, but now I can up-level them through decoration, through Itential Automation Gateway into Platform, and now I can start to build end-to-end workflows that focus on leveraging those things in a scalable, automatable, auditable, secure way in my infrastructure. And that concludes my demo for Automation Gateway. Again, feel free to go check Gateway out. You get everything you need at itential.com/getting started.
These workflows that you're building here, I mean, I get the idea of taking these tools and presenting them and making them a bit more accessible. The question is can they run cross, automation platforms? So can I build like little segment in something that makes sense to do in Ansible and do something in NetMiko and then do something in Terraform and build a workflow around all three that makes those like variables and those inputs consistent? I'm trying to figure out like how to extend this tool, because I mean, I just plainly, and I know we're early on in this looks like an interface for automation tools that, if you're already using the automation tool,
yep.
I'm having a hard time seeing the value of just giving an interface to it. I'm trying to see what the extension and the value is to someone to patch it all together. So that's one I could think of. Maybe there's more that's coming, and I'd be happy just to shut up and say, I'll wait. But I'm just kind of curious, like, what are those next steps that we can do with this to kind of extend the capabilities of those tools or to give us additional value? And is really what I'm looking for.
I mean, you're spot on right. You are, I mean, you just set up the rest of the day or the rest of the hour for me, and it's fantastic. So I wanted to focus on Gateway because I thought it was important that folks understood that, so many automation tools out there today are asking you to throw away your investments in either Ansible or custom scripting or Terraform and so forth. And it was really important that was our starting point, because we recognize that's where enterprises are starting today. What you're going to see in subsequent sessions here today is exactly what you just alluded to, is how do you take that, compartmentalize that, and then build end-to-end workflows that leverage different pieces of it. You're absolutely right. You can have a workflow that runs a little bit of Ansible, a little bit of Terraform, a little bit of NetMiko, a little bit of direct API access, and put that all together into a final workflow. And that's exactly what you're going to see